Have you ever been reading in the Old Testament and you come across a phrase that makes no sense to you? Of course you have. It just happened to me too. I was talking with a friend about salt the other day. We had both been reading in the Old Testament and come across salt somewhere in the book of Numbers. You know, we're used to salt from the New Testament. Matthew 5:13, you are the salt of the earth. But it's also thrown around a little bit in the Old Testament. And she was sharing that she was in a hard season, a season of just trying to survive, really. And she felt like she was drowning, but she knew God wouldn't let her drown. And similarly, we talked about being refined by fire, how we can be burned, but not consumed. Then she said something about salt in the fire. And neither one of us had heard it before, like, what does that mean, really? And there was something there. The next morning, I was following a reading plan that landed me in Numbers 18. Numbers 18:19 says, "All the holy contributions that the people of Israel present to the Lord I give to you, and to your sons and daughters with you as a perpetual due. It is a covenant of salt forever, before the Lord for you and for your offspring with you." It was perfect timing. God can do that, you know. But what is a covenant of salt? If you follow the cross reference, you'll go to Leviticus 2:13. "You shall season all your grain offerings with salt. You shall not let the salt of the covenant with your God be missing from your grain offering. With all your offsprings you shall offer salt." This is the first time in Scripture that we see salt. It's included in many laws associated with sacrifices. The sacrifices God required were a symbol of the Israelites' dedication to God. They were sinful people responding to a holy God. For God to dwell with them, they had to be holy too. So sacrifices had to be made for their unholiness. Each sacrifice atoned for or covered over the sin. And one of the things God's people could offer as a sacrifice was a grain offering. It included flour, oil, and incense. It was baked, fried, or cooked. And when the Israelites were offering grain to God, their offering had to include salt. Why? What are some characteristics of salt? Number one, it's common. It's easy to find. It's used daily. It's within reach. Number two, it's a preservative. It actually inhibits bacterial growth, so it can keep food fresh for longer. It's lasting. And number three, it doesn't burn. Salt doesn't burn up in the fire like other elements. It's indestructible. God chose salt as a symbol of his everlasting covenant with his people. It symbolizes permanent agreement. The covenant God has set up with his people is forever. It's enduring. Salt means forever. And this is what my friend was getting at. She knows she's in a refining season, a season of fire and purification and pain even. But God's not going to let her burn up. He's not going to leave her in it. Yes, we will be refined by fire. God uses it to burn off what he doesn't want. It's the only way for us to be purified and sanctified. But yes, it's uncomfortable. It's painful. Isaiah 48:10 says in the NLT, "I have refined you, but not as silver is refined. Rather, I have refined you in the furnace of suffering." God doesn't refine us exactly like metal. He doesn't literally burn us with fire or flame. He often uses suffering. And if you've ever been in a season of suffering, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you are in deep pain, the worst of you comes up and out. We quickly discover what's in our heart, and it can be really ugly. Through suffering, we can find out how selfish we really are, that our emotions drive what we say and do, where we go to numb ourselves from pain, who we rely on outside of God, and what we're really afraid of. But we can also allow God to work through the suffering instead of resisting him. When we're able to process and accept the refinement, we can experience comfort and growth even in the midst of great pain and heartache. If we press into suffering, we find out God has a purpose for it. We are stronger than we think. We are worth the work. We have a story to share, and God is with us in our pain. I was journaling recently from a time of looking back at a season of suffering. This is what my entry said. "I can remember crying in anxiety in my closet when I was feeling undervalued, overlooked, snubbed, etc. I remember feeling so desperate there. I was miserable. And God said, I was in control then too. I felt conflicted that he controlled the pain and allowed it, as well as used it to get me out of there. Hebrews 2 talks about suffering as a means of perfecting. He used that terrible pain to grow me. I know that. He was growing me for where he was taking me. You can't always see the work of perfecting while you're in the middle of suffering. But if we know anything from those who have gone before us, and especially from Jesus, we know that ultimately the suffering leads to our growth. And now we know that salt means we are kept safe through suffering. God has promised to keep us. His covenant with us is indestructible like salt. So if you're in a season of suffering right now, know that you won't stay there. You are being stretched and maybe a little burned, but the salt means you're secure. God isn't letting go of you. Let's take a minute to process and pray. Ask yourself, what has your suffering taught you already? What can help you remember God is with you in seasons of suffering?